Good afternoon, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the energies for today on the 13th of May with the Monday's Musings. First and foremost, it feels really important to address the elephant in the room, and I don't mean my frizzy hair, but the intense electric static energy that is going on at the moment. So much so that for the first time in amount of years, I've actually had to take notes. And when I feel into that, I almost feel a certain amount of disappointment in myself that I'm restricting the flow, that I'm trying to control something that is out of my control. However, this week particularly, I'm aware it's Mental Awareness Week. Being acutely able to respond to the information that's coming in a healthy, balanced, maintained manner is going to be key. And for me, that is to actually take some notes of some of the stuff that is trying to be heard. That's the other essence this week. As I was setting up the recording equipment, does feel again a bit like glitchy energy, but unlike before with the Big Ben, the horses, all that kind of stuff, it doesn't feel like a glitch in timeline. It feels like a lag, almost like things are waiting to catch up, ourselves included, and that can bring some frustration to light this week that needs to be seen, held and embraced. See, that wasn't in the notes. So having the notes as structure, having our structure but being adaptable this week is going to be very beneficial for us all. The other thing that came up as I was setting up the recording this for everything this week was that I needed the noise to be increased in order for it to be better. Watch that. Watch that. So in my own upbringing, I would always be very aware of the quiet energies of the quiet people because they were very contained. And then when they weren't, they were very worth watching this week. So acknowledging that the most noise doesn't always get the most positive outcome, our own included. And that can be really important behind why we may need steps. So if I tuned in to the energy today, well I did today, and went to do the video without breaking it down, without going into what was going on for me first and foremost, and my own reactions to that, yeah, it could have been quite intense and quite different from what I'm about to share. Okay, so there's a beauty in stepping back and observing what is going on around us, but also the impact that that has on us and how we choose to react. The beautiful spaces that are available between the noise, the beautiful moments that are there as potential between our thoughts, our words, and then our deeds. Recognizing that those lags, what we see as lags, could be an incredible opportunity to actually shift and change things. There was a lot last week that I am going to skim over that doesn't need repeating, and again that feels quite poignant. There are certain things that are going to come back from last week that we can go, oh yes, okay. That being the rainbow serpent, the rainbow within us, this rise of kundalini energy, this huge energy that is rising within us, which I'm going to go into more detail in a moment, but recognizing that it's always been there. Like anything, these things have always been there. It is our awareness that is expanding. It is our view, our vision of ourselves and each other and the world at large that is changing. Okay, so even though it feels like there's a lot being uncovered that, you know, may be new, it has always been there. What is happening is the very structure, the very system is starting to shake up and recollaborate. And I don't mean externally, I mean internally as well. Okay, and that can cause a lot of discomfort. That can cause a lot of fear-based actions. That can cause a lot of knee-jerk reactions this week as well. So being very mindful of that. There was something else last week I was going to reiterate and go over, but it feels almost as if it's shifted. So once we can acknowledge and hold space for what's going on for us, being aware that it is our awareness of the situation that is increasing, then other things may seem not less relevant, but that they have come to a completion. An example this week I shared, for me, what would be quite a ranty video in regards to abundance and healing and sharing. And it just felt lovely to have that full circle completion. that's been going on for a few years, and to have that closure this week. And we are being faced with that energy as well, which I will go into in a moment in regards to the Hermit year that we're all about to start walking towards, but ultimately we're always walking towards. So back to the original script, if you will, at hand. The first thing that's on my list here, which I wrote this morning in meditation, so it's all kind of new to me as well, was the Northern Lights, the beautiful Northern Lights. Yes, so when I didn't actually get to see them. I felt them. My word, did I feel them. And I know quite a few people around me did, but I didn't get to see them. First time I didn't know they were happening, so I didn't get to see them. And the second time I did know, and I stayed up late and I still didn't get to see them. And there's something in that we can be as prepared as we think we need to be. We can think that it was because we weren't prepared, and then we can make sure that we are prepared. But we will only see what we are ready to see this week, and so will others. And to have that patience, that prudence of the process, and to recognize our own before we go jumping into others. This video included, as with everything I share, is either for you or it isn't. There's no judgment there, and there's no expectation. So scroll on by if not, and if not, you know, thank you for staying with me throughout my own process as well, because in sharing this, I'm discovering stuff about myself as well. And that is the beauty of it. I will go into this in a moment. No matter what is going on around us, one of the beauties here is to really learn about ourselves, and to really learn about how we react and what we are holding space for, and more importantly, what we are capable of holding space for. But that takes a good hard look at ourselves. Yes. So the Northern Lights, when I tuned into it, what I really got in one of the daily guidances was that we had been heard. Our prayers by our ancestors had been heard. Now that's great. That's great. But that also means we will also be expected to listen and to step up to the mark of the things that we may have been asking for in a bigger vision. Now the Aurora Borealis, obviously they're the stars, they're the Northern Lights, and yeah, there's a lot there about our North Node and everything else, but from the perspective of the tarot and our ancestors, it is about the bigger vision. Okay, so being very mindful of not just our view of things, not just the collective view of things, but an even more expanded vision of that, and May really brings that to the forefront for those that want to see it. Not even those that are able to, those that want to see it. The truth of the matter is I wasn't that fussed about seeing the Northern Lights, otherwise I would have driven to the top of the hill. So I didn't actually want to see them either. So being honest with ourselves with that, there may be things that we just don't want to look at, that we don't feel that we need to see, that we can already feel that occurring, particularly with a lot of stuff that's going on in the mainstream media at the moment. Being very mindful of that, with it being Mental Health Awareness Week, knowing when to put down gadgets, to go out into nature, to be with energies that make us feel good and balanced, so that we can then take on board any shifts that are occurring as well from a more constructive, healthy, rooted space. So the second thing about the Northern Lights I've written here is about Venus. Now, obviously they occurred on a Friday, which is the day of the feminine, which is the day of Venus as well. But Venus is the only planet this year that isn't going to go retrograde. And Venus is very much to do with love and linked to Taurus. So the sun was in Taurus at the same time. So underneath it all, there is this beautiful no going back with the love that is being asked of us. No going back with the expansion of our own heart here. Also, Venus, when she goes through her journey to the dark goddess journey, when we go through that rites of initiation of everything we thought we knew we were being removed from us, when the dark feminine returns ascended as Ishtar, or even as Aurora Borealis being named after that energy, the feminine, the dark goddess, has actually ascended. So the potential here is to go into our shadow, but to return with what many are calling the golden shadow, you know, that light that is found within the darkness here. Now that is going to bring forth a primal energy. We're talking Salka on another level. We're talking that huge kundalini rising, that Quetzalcoatl, that rainbow serpent type energy that is necessary to bridge where we are to where we'd want to be, but also more importantly to help us to go up in vibration, so that we're not living what can feel like hell on earth at times, so that we are really expanding our own frequency here. That is going to take some primal earth, physical, emotional energy, and that is being seen around us. God knows I felt it. I felt it in my ranty video. I felt it in my relationships. I feel it in my hair. I feel it everywhere at the moment. And there's a real primal root chakra, heart expansive, solar plexus stretching. Oh my goodness, the ground is wobbling. Quite literally for me, the last week or so, the ground is moving. It is literally moving. The belly of the mother is actually moving, like contractions of labor for this big shift. And I mean, there's always shifts, right? But this is quite a monumental one in regards to our relationship with the mother, which is the other thing that I mentioned last week. The one thing I will share on that, obviously with Quetzalcoatl rising, with the Kundalini rising, we do have the winged messenger. We do have the winged healer here that's rising. So, of course, any wounds are going to come to light here in how we see ourselves and how we see the world. So that also came up in last week's video. So we have this Kundalini energy rising. We have our connection to the mother and how we see ourselves in respect to that. Bringing the other thing to light, this isn't happening just on a physical level. This is happening on an astral level as well. This is happening on, without getting too trippy and trying to keep it more applicable to life, which feels like key this week as well, to stay very grounded in what's happening and make it applicable to where you are. It's one thing to reflect. It's another to think, whoa, what is going on? Whoa, there's so many shifts of the Aquarian age. Okay, but does that put food on my table? Keeping it very applicable to life this week is going to be key. Those grounded, structured, small steps as well with this vast amount of energy. When we think of the star card, one of the things with the star card is it's a beautiful card. It's the bigger vision, it's the dreams, it's the hopes, but it can seem so far away from where we are. And we're going to feel that this week. And that's going to cause that primal urgency, that yearning, that desire, that physical longing within us. Okay, and that's going to bring up a lot of emotions that may have stood in the way. And it's not just in the physical realms, it's in other timelines as well, but it's also in our astral realms. Oh, my screen's gone very bright. So you may find that your dreams are a bit trippy this next week in particular, bringing up old wounds, bringing up old relationships, bringing up hopes perhaps and potentials, which can make us feel inspired but also quite low in regards to where we are. An example, last night I dreamt I was in a nursing home with a lot of elders, and I was caring for elders, and it felt amazing to be around this wise energy that has been there before. And there's something in that to really connect to, experience this week, not only our ancestors, not only our elders, not only those that have walked the path, because obviously everyone's path is their path and it isn't your path, but your own experience as well, to really reflect over what has helped you open your heart to the love that you are this week, and being aware that that's what's being reflected. Another opportunity to do that. But my dream last night in this nursing home, my mother was there and she had an epidural in place and she was very sick and she was in pain. And obviously I can go into my own journey with my mother and her illness before she passed, but also the sick and the dis-ease of Pachamama and the mother wound as well, and everything that I create, and the not being able to numb ourselves to the pain of that, really feeling that primal call, that wild energy within us, calling us out and up this week. And it is doing that. It may not feel like it. It may feel as if it's so intense it takes our breath away sometimes, but it's calling us up. It's calling us to expand, to go beyond what is going on a smaller level and really feel into the potential that's being asked for us, by breaking it down and by finding out what we need in each moment, knowing that we can't numb ourselves to this pain, but we can siphon it in. We can balance it with nice energies, nice food, nature, those kind of basic self-care, the basic needs. Let that be the only hierarchy that is happening this week if you can. And I will go into that. There's a lot of other hierarchies that are trying to take center stage. Okay, so in my dream, my mother, yes, couldn't obviously numb her pain, but what I could see was the pride that she had on her face for me, purely being who I was and loving what I was doing. And if you take anything from this video this week, there is great medicine in that. There is great, even if it feels uncomfortable, a bit absurd, a bit weird, being who we are, there is great medicine, strength and rooting in these changes around us that can be found by being who we are. When we stand in that, when we open our heart to that, not for others, but for ourselves, it becomes a light. It becomes a bigger vision. It becomes the thing that guides us forward, which is what I'm also going to go on to in a moment. Being mindful of some of the distractions that are going on out there, having an open heart and not being distracted from them. So there's a lot going on in the media at the moment about situations that almost portrayed the film The Hunger Games. The clue there is in the title, Hunger Games. There's some real big games going on with regards to what it is we are hungering for, to see how far we can be pushed. So be mindful with that. Now, I'm not going to say don't act out. I'm not going to say act out. What I'm going to encourage is that you do it from a place from your heart. You really feel into why it is you are sharing what you're sharing, doing what you're doing. What narrative are you actually feeding here? To really look at any anger that we may feel, and the uncomfortable realization that we may have empowered others to walk our path for us, and in that we may have disempowered ourselves. By stepping out of having control of our own life, we have disempowered ourselves. By living our dreams through the vision of others, we have disempowered ourselves. By trying to almost get a metaphorical pat on the back from the universe or whatever for being a good girl or a good boy or a good they, them or whatever, we have disempowered ourselves, and that is bringing to the surface an anger. Okay, so being mindful of what is actually behind the anger. What is triggering it is steps. What is triggering it is a reflection, an opportunity to look at what is going on for you. That's an option. Do it, don't do it. But being aware of the much bigger vision here and acting from a empowered place, whatever that may be for you. And yeah, empowerment comes with hindsight, right? We can all look back and go, oh, I wish I'd done a bit better there. But these are steps as well. Okay. One of the biggest things that came through this morning in the meditation is this real deep need to return to love as our currency and as that as our hierarchy, and using all of this as an opportunity to see where we may not have trusted love for the power that it is. We may not have trusted, and I'm not just talking love in relationships. Yes, obviously betrayal wounds will come to light. All those kind of energies will come to light where we may have shut off and closed down our ability to love. But remember, we are that love energy. When we're in that currency, when we're in that abundance, then we will see where we may have held that back, where others may have held that back, you know, and having that choice of continuing to come from a place of hate and fear, regardless of the situation, or to say, actually, I'm going to stay firm in this love that I feel and see all of this as incredible things that are playing out on the stage around me as change that is actually happening. Now, what energy do I want to give to that change? There are a lot of distractions going on at the moment that may feel as if they're coming from a embodied perspective, but they're actually, or a more spiritual perspective, something worth fighting for. A lot of them are actually man-made. One of the things I woke up to this morning was the analogy of a wave machine. I looked outside and something felt off. I could feel these big shifts happening and felt excitement with them, like someone that's in labor, you know, noticing a few signs of transition and thinking the moment's coming, better get my gloves on, and then pausing and realizing, stepping back, feeling into what was going on and realizing that not all was as it seems. Something was off. And that's when I was given the analogy of a wave machine for entertainment purposes. There's a lot of waves that are being made. Again, last week, the energy spoke of stirring the shit for the sheer sake of it. This week, there's a lot of medicine and lessons almost being utilized against their purpose. So there's a lot of approaches coming up as if they are there to help us, to serve us, when actually what they're doing is pushing the wound, but in a completely different way. So again, keep coming back to this heart space. It can be really confusing out there if we step out of the heart, if we go into the mind, if we go into any other energies. Being mindful that when we attack people on the front line, what we're actually doing, we're not actually boycotting the energy that we think we are behind it. There's always a scapegoat. Being mindful of that. There's always a scapegoat in every situation. In every situation there's a scapegoat. So being mindful of who we may think we're standing up against and who we may think we are being an activist for, and what narrative again we are feeding into in that. And overall, the awareness here, you know, there's a lot coming to light that can make us think, what the fuck is going on? I don't know what I think is going on. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I believe anymore. And it's a wonderful opportunity to realize that our awareness is expanding. And that's the ultimate system that needs growth, is our awareness, our view, our vision of the bigger vision of ourselves and each other. So I've mentioned about it being Mental Health Awareness Week, and obviously all of this can be very unsettling. So now is an opportunity to really ground and integrate these changes into our body by coming into center and balance. And again, back to basic needs. It really doesn't have to be complicated. Back to basic needs. My EMDR instructor the other day had a really valid point when you're in fight or flight, of stopping, pausing, and having a sip of water. Just changes and takes us into that more relaxed state. The ultimate is, does it feel good? Does what you're doing feel good? Take that moment to pause and not, oh yeah, because I really had to say that, but actually, yeah, does it feel good this week? Find the structure, which we've mentioned about, and obviously for me that was the steps, but also the cards that I'm going to use today. I'm going to connect, for me, to the Vision Quest Energy Tarot, which is a more shamanic perspective, a more embodied perspective, a more applicable to everyday life perspective, and that's different for us all. I'm really respecting that this week is going to be key for yourself as well. And finally, contrary to what's going on, even though we are still in a strength year, but bear in mind, strength, I can't say this enough, was originally in the place of justice. So we're in that justice year as well. Even though we are in that energy, that heart expansive energy of our own truth and the return of the feminine, more ascended and embodied, we have to listen to the feminine first before we can do that. But also we are heading towards a hermit year. For myself, it will be July onwards, but from the end of the year into 2025, it will be a hermit year. Now, when we think of the hermit year, yes, we have the enduring path that got us there, but we also have the opportunity to look at what star. In the hermit card, he has a star in the lantern. What vision has been guiding us, has been tempting us, has been waving the metaphorical carrot in front of us? Is it our own? And that is what we're being encouraged to start to feel into. If we can go not beyond any rage, but in and through what is going on here. If we can really unravel and start to feel what is occurring for us. Yes, of course, there'll be anger there at moments where we feel disempowered, of course. But by saying it was someone else's doing, we are not empowering ourselves. Now, I'm not saying that we say this was our fault entirely and completely, and you know, things happen for a reason or any of that, but I am suggesting we acknowledge our place in the whole story. Otherwise we are bystanders of our own narrative. Okay, so with that in mind, I've noticed I'm 22 minutes in. I'm going to look at the energy for this week. I'm going to do a medicine wheel reading. And I feel almost disappointed there that it can't be broken down into structures, days of the week. And it almost feels like, oh, I don't know if that's the right energy to take a bigger perspective. So really feeling into that this week. Is it the right energy to take a bigger perspective? It may not be applicable to you. You may need a breakdown of daily occurrences to understand what is occurring. My suggestion is, if you don't know where you're at on a mental level, emotional level, spiritual level, or physical level, it really doesn't matter what someone or what you break down every day and hope to achieve. So recognizing the benefit of the bigger picture here. The bigger picture isn't about bypassing what is going on. It's about going through what is going on and gaining a more educated perspective. Okay, so medicine wheel. And we have at the bottom of the pack the Ten of Pentacles. We have wealth here. We have all these circles that are actually coming to completion. All these plates, all these things that we've tried to juggle, some that we've had to let go of, some that we are still carrying without even knowing half the time, finally coming to completion. We have growth here. That is the potential of May. Underneath it all, no matter how intense, the potential there is growth. We have to be open to that. Okay? Right. And I really felt like I wanted to stop with the whole we have to be open with that. But actually, the card that I've pulled for the center of the medicine wheel on a soul level, you know, when we're in our own medicine wheel, when we are at one with everything, we decide to discover something, so we see it separate from ourselves in the space of the north, and we walk our whole medicine wheel. What comes to light, what needs healing, what physical changes need to come into perspective, and we then come back into the center of our medicine wheel. And I felt quite judgmental when I said we have to do X, Y, and Z, but actually in the very center of this medicine wheel is the Three of Cups, the Three of Water, fullness here. There comes a time when we do have to say, this is what I'm going to get my sustenance from. This is what I'm going to fill my cup from. This is the lessons I am choosing to take forward. This is what I want to create and birth as a result. There comes a time when we do have to do what we have to do, and acknowledging that on a soul level. Otherwise, how else are we going to learn? We can either this week have the potential of sitting back and doing nothing and thinking, right, no, I shouldn't do that, I shouldn't do that, and that leads to procrastination, or we can really force the changes that are already naturally occurring. So finding a balance that is right for you, that brings you fullness, that feeds any thirst that you may have this week, is going to be key. But ultimately, yes, we have wealth at the bottom, but we also have birth at the center. We have our soul's potential being birthed here one way or another, right? Okay, so mentally we have the Mother of Air, we have the Queen of Air here, and I'm just going to show you this card because I love how in the clouds there's an eagle, above her head there's an eagle, and in her hair there's an eagle. There's always another perspective. There's always a greater vision there. There's always an expanded view here. No matter how high we think we can go, there's always another level to reach from wherever we are at. And really holding space for that with the mind this week. In particular, if we want to be more nurturing, in particular, if we want to be more direct, there's always another thing to learn. And having compassion and patience and prudence in the process of that this week is what's going to really nurture us. So in the space of the East, in the new beginnings, we have the Daughter of Water. When it comes to our emotions, they're not quite as mature as our mindset this week, even though it's mental health awareness this week, being aware that our emotions really impact our mind. We can blame a lot on our mind, but actually being mindful of what we're feeling as well. There's no numbing that down. There's a release to be occurring here. So we have those cups almost from the soul, from the center of the medicine wheel, from the fullness being released, and it's being released from the womb space. You can see that she's holding it here over her womb space. So in the things that we create, okay, recognizing that there is a place for all of it, but some of it may not quite be as nurturing or mature as we would like it to be. Once we're aware of that, once we have awareness, things can start to shift onto another perspective, but feeling into the awareness of that is going to be key. In the space of the South, the present moment, Amaru, the serpent, mother of the waters, our healing. We have the shaman, we have the Hierophant. I absolutely adore this card. But we have this opportunity to recognize not only the wisdom in the dark night of our soul and in the shadow there, not only the wisdom that's trying to come through that will help lead us into the more hermit-based year, but the wild also, the purity of the wild, the Sauka, the light that's within us, this primal energy that wants to be heard, doesn't have to be fought or controlled or, dare I say it, feared or even lashed out with. It may be a different way to see the wild this week coming to light. It's the ability to walk the realms, but being able to feel these things and hold space for them is the first key. So really reflecting over what we have learned with the shaman, with the Hierophant, what lessons we have discovered, what teachings we wish to take forward, and remembering that it's in how we take it forward we complete the circle. Okay, really finishing that loop this week is going to be key in our behaviours. You know, it's one thing to want a world of peace, and then another to get very caught up in not having peace within our own life. So really bringing it back. Are we embodying the path that we are walking? I was going to say claim to be walking, but no, it's not about claiming to be walking it now. We are embodying it, but seeing that even in the moments where we feel like we're not, it's still part of it. This week, it's still part of the lesson. And when we recognize that, that healing just comes naturally. We just shed any expectations and assumptions and beliefs of how we should be. And that brings a fullness, and that brings a clarity in our mind, and that brings a release of the emotional immaturity regarding the things that we are creating. So in the space of the West, and I really feel that. I feel a softening in the root chakra. I feel a softening in the connection to the earth this week, a real potential there. Which brings me into the space of the West and Otorongo and death and the thunder beings. I'm not surprised here to see thunder. I'm not surprised here to see the way of the Heyoka. In the Nine of Wands, or in here the Nine of Fire, the inner strength. And that is the key, isn't it? It all depends how we choose to see it. We can see the Nine of Wands as defensive, as exhaustion, as burnout. And there is an opportunity there for it to be that way if we continue to be immature with how we see our own creativity. If we continue to not fill up on the fullness of everything, our own fuck-ups as well, you know, our own journey as well. If we continue to do that, yes, it can be quite exhausting. It can also be transformative. Okay, so it's really up to us how much we decide to judge, how much we decide to hold up our beliefs and our views and depend upon them. I also see the crutch here of the Nine of Wands, really looking at what it is we are depending upon. So for me, inner strength has always been a way forward. Rah! You know, and this ranty video this week took some holding space for, because yes, I wanted to rant, but I knew that wasn't going to get my point across. It would, you know, defense just causes defensiveness, right? So there was a need for balance there. And in that, I felt a huge amount of powerful energy coming through. And we will notice that and acknowledge that if we can give the wild a voice without making it personal, being aware of our own personal journey as well, but without making it just about us this week. Not only will we feel the inner strength there, but we will feel the other energies that we're connected to. The elders, the mother, the greater vision at hand. Okay, so let's have a little look. We have one major arcana this week, and it is the Shaman. It is the Hierophant. Let me just, oh, there's a new rental property just come up. I'll have to look into that. We have one energy, one major arcana this week, and it is the Shaman or the Hierophant. And it feels like from now actually into at least when, I want to say life, but so say life. Say what you want to say this week with clarity and with dedication and commitment. That's going to really bring a fullness in regards to everything that we create. That's going to help us recognize thought, action, thought, what is it? Thought, deeds, action, whatever it may be, our own stages of creativity. That's really going to bug me now. Pausing in between each one of them, allowing the confusion to be part of the process. Acknowledging we're not only walking the realms of our own potential and timeline, but we're walking the inner worlds of our own landscape this week. When we feel into that, we can really have clarity. We can really connect to the higher perspective that is available. We can really feel the fullness and the joy, and more importantly, see the deliverance of our own potential that has always been occurring. As we step into the shamans that we are, the elders that we are becoming. So we have 2 cup cards, 1 air card and a wand card, and I feel a disappointment that I've actually separated the elements this week, and that feels like key as well. To keep all of the elements together is what's going to give us the physical balance, to recognize that our spiritual energy is what actually fuels our mindset, and it's our mindset that actually keeps our emotions flowing, and it's that helps us to create whatever it is we are asked to create. Remembering that as well, that we are actually being asked to create things, not just on a personal level. So with that in mind, what are we being asked to create, Pachamama? 1 card for your children this week. Oh. So we actually have right, I'm going to stick with the 3 cards because we have 3 in the middle of the reading. We have Vision Quest, we have the Hanged Man, we have the Enlightened Perspective, we have that need to pause, to see things from different perspectives, to really open ourselves up to the light that we are and the light that's trying to come through in the world that we are creating as a result. We then have the 2 of Air, or the 2 of Swords here, Inner Peace. Okay, recognizing that we all have our own views, that we all have our own beliefs, and we all have our own judgments and our own visions, dare I say, but they all come from the same bird. They all come from the same energy. They all come from the same perspective, even those times when it doesn't feel like it. So we can say, my ancestor was X, Y, and Z, so I'm totally opposite. So they've had nothing to do with the person that I am. They have. They have. And the sooner we can recognize that there are two sides to every coin, that every feather comes from the same bird, whatever analogy you want to use, that oneness there. Okay, so this is coming to light for me to see myself in this situation and my part to play. And thank you. Next. And having peace with that. And returning to the space of the heart here, we have the Ace of Water, we have the Ace of Cups, recognizing that love for the currency that it is, not the fear card that's underneath it all. The love that we are asking to actually currently see for the hierarchy that wants to come through. Remember, Venus is the only planet that is not going backwards, no matter how tough this week may get, this month, this year, whatever is going on for you, this day, this hour, no matter what goes on in your current situation, keeping your heart open as much as possible, finding people that will help you do that, finding situations that will help you to remember the love that you are, not the alternative, is what's actually being asked of us. As we ascend, as the feminine within us actually ascends to the bigger vision. Take care, have the most incredible week, and I shall see you soon.